Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Ball Watching. Jake Koenig and Justin Graham here, and we are presented by our friends at Hoffman Brothers for this year in 2024. Let me just start off with a plug for Hoffman Brothers. This is their time of year, man. I don't know about you, but I feel like anytime I drive anywhere during the day, I see so many Hoffman Brothers trucks, and it's just great to see them helping so many people out in the St. Louis community. I see them far more than literally any other provider of these types of services. But I mean, they're out doing the Lord's work right now. I mean, this St. Louis weather is just so hard to predict, and to have them in your corner to help you get ahead or catch up on any of your household needs is a huge deal. And Hoffman Brothers is the team to do that. HOFFMANN bros.com, HoffmanBros.com, or you can call them at 314-664-3011. Hoffman Brothers, they're your friends.
The reason that you're seeing so many trucks, Jake, you already mentioned the weather. I mean, it's been getting hot, cold. Dude, it's 78 right now outside. But Monday is going to be a high of 45. Call the Hoffman Brothers. Get your house taken care of. They'll hook you up.
Yes, they will. Yes, they will. So, Justin, no five-a-side today, but that's because we have a pretty fun topic to talk about. For anyone that isn't cued into, the big pundits and all the analysts and those doing the reporting for the rumors in the transfer mill, St. Louis's very own, or at least we'll claim him, and he's a SLU product as well, Patrick Schulte, current MLS Cup winner, played, the big haul for the Columbus Crew last year, and just so proud to be a former Billiken here, is being linked to some big-time European suitors. The rumor mill came out today. Emmanuel Veth confirmed as well via Transfer Market that he is being linked to big dogs like Arsenal, like Manchester United, like Wolverhampton Wanderers as well. Those are three big clubs, definitely two huge clubs. Man, you a little bit of a dumpster fire right now, so I would want to stray away from that one. But the idea, Justin, of him being in this circle and roaming the halls and having a contract, is he going to play? Maybe it's more of a sign him and loan him or capture more of the American market type thing. But, dude, that's some cool stuff.
It's awesome for him to be in the conversation. I'm a little bit more concerned, Jake, that he would not play if he goes over there. I mean, we've seen it with Zach Steffen. We've seen it with Matt Turner. And I just want to make sure that we're getting him enough playing time in the time period, because right now is a huge growth opportunity for him and could be one of those guys that we would look forward to in the World Cup when it comes to the U.S. So I want to make sure that he is continued to actually getting playing time. So that's my only concern, but it's awesome that he's even being in conversations with Arsenal and teams like that overseas.
It's phenomenal. And even to that point, Justin, how those moves have panned out. Yeah, Turner comes in, played a couple cup games or tournament games for Arsenal. Steffen, I think he played a couple Premier League games because of injury for Ederson, whoever the goalkeeper was. And I think it still was Ederson. Those feel like they're 1 year on the bench as a backup and then either loaned out or sold out to a different club in Europe. So like Steffen went and played in Germany, was successful, and then he kind of fell off. Turner got bought in the Premier League with Nottingham Forest, has kind of fallen off and been replaced. But the idea, like, that could be his platform. If this is something that he wants to do, I think this is a cool avenue to do so. And I would love to see him donning the Arsenal red and white. So I'd be very, very pumped for that. But it's a cool transfer. But that's where we're at these days. Honestly, it's a cool thing.
It's awesome for them. And I just got a notification too. Another quick U.S. men's national team. Tyler Adams returns to the lineup. Joyce Christian Pulisic and Weston McKennie as headliners for CONCACAF Nations League. So just making it all just well-rounded within this U.S. men's national team.
I like that. I know the roster was being released today. Yeah, like right at this time, because they're doing Premier League coverage before the final leg of the round of 16. And they're releasing the roster fully during that time. So maybe we'll have to catch at the very end here. But let's get into the content today, Justin, for our City versus LA Galaxy preview, the gateway head to the Galaxy. And I got one more thing, actually, before we do the preview, Justin. Celio, your boy, back on the bench this time for Match Day Team of the Week for Match Day 4 MLS. Huge creds for our boy Celio. The team moved down a spot on the power rankings to 13 from 12. Not a big worry there. LA Galaxy, I think, are coming at 6 or 7 right now. And then injuries, I don't think anything new as of last weekend, Justin, but I did see, and this is just on FOTMob, so haven't heard any reports, but still expecting to be without Yaro until late March, from what it looks like, according to these reports, with a hamstring issue. And Blum has been updated to mid-April on the knee. So huge opportunity for Durkin to just claim that spot for his own and make it very difficult for Blum to get back into this. And I am thanking my lucky Lutz stars that we went out and got Durkin, because what would we be doing in this case right now had Blum been out for this long?
We probably would have been like doing a rotation with like Akil Watts or someone as well, and putting someone and maybe even dropping in like Indy or someone in that space. So extremely happy that we have Durkin. And Jake, I know we mentioned it, I just got excited and went to this full roster for the U.S. men's national team. Some of the ones to kind of call out, Drake Callender is one of the goalies. So I was hoping maybe we would see Patrick Schulte there, but if he's with Ethan Horvath and Matt Turner, one to call out. I mean, it's a bunch of the big name guys, but I would also like to call out Tim Ream. He's being called in. And then also Josh Sargent, because he's been on absolute fire for Norwich City. So two St. Louis boys made it, even though Pat didn't.
I love it. Fantastic. Well, we'll do more of some U.S. stuff when we get some more time here. But let's get into the Galaxy, Justin. 2 games last year. And what did I say? We had 4 or 5 draws last year. These were 2 of them against the Galaxy. And we played them in June on a Sunday game, which love day games. That game kind of sucked because we should not have drawn them, but it was a 1-1 draw on June 11th. Nico had our first goal to open it up, and then the Galaxy equalized late on in the game in the 85th, ticking ourselves in the, oh God, I hate the late equalizers, dude.
That one was tough for us to watch. I remember walking out there like, no chance, we should have just tied that game. The Nico goal, though, if you remember, Jake, in the 68th, there was a ball kind of crossed in by Indy, and it bounced once before him, and he took a touch up over his head and flicked it into the far post. I would put it up there for one of our goals of the year, to be honest. And then we drew them again, like you said, on September 10th. Sam had a goal in the 4th minute. Joao followed up in the 28th, and we're like, oh, we're going to run away with this thing. No. Then they had a PK in the 53rd. And then unfortunately there was a Sam red card in the 60th, and then they scored again in the 82nd. The PK specifically, Jake, is one of the ones that we talked with George Gansner on. It was that hand that was kind of like outstretched a little bit to the side, and he blocked a shot. And it was like, is that really a handball? But unfortunately it was not a natural position, so that's why it was called.
And good shout out, Justin, for George Gansner. For anyone that hasn't listened yet, we released the 2nd episode of Sin Bin, our podcast segment, at least for ball watching, dedicated entirely to discussing calls like that, rules, referees, all of the debate around the ongoing CBA negotiations between Professional Soccer Referee Association and Pro, which is MLS's kind of ref arm. So go catch that episode if you haven't. George went in on some of the situations going on in MLS right now. It's eye-opening. The MLS definitely has some dark side vibes going, if I'm being totally honest. A lot of weird behind the scenes pulling strings, but we're living in that world.
Yeah, I mean, George got pretty amped up, and rightfully so. I think we've seen already. I mean, you put the stat in there, Jake, that you said there was like 22 already calls that were like should have been reversed or already like big moments, and compared to this time last year, there was like 2. And so it's really showing the lack of, I would say, expertise and or experience from these referees, that they're pretty much, it reminds me, Jake, of like whenever you hear in like the NHL of like when a goalie goes out and they have to pull the guy from like the nearest schnooks to go hop in net. That's what we're using for refs right now.
Yes. I love that. Those are always so much fun. So let's go to the Galaxy. Let's double click, see how they're doing since we last saw them. They have made some splash signings to open up the 2024 campaign. 2 of them, I would say, very notable, being Joseph Painsil from Belgium. He's not Belgian, but they signed him from Genk in the Belgian. They're always in the Champions League. They're always a team that's playing at the highest level in Belgium, of course, but also in all of Europe at the highest league. And then they also signed Gabriel Peck, who's 22. I'd say more on the younger end, has more room to grow developmentally, but a huge prospect coming from Brazil, playing for Vasco da Gama, which is one of the biggest clubs in their top tier. And both those guys on the attacking line. Gabriel Peck hasn't featured as much yet, but Joseph Painsil is off to flying start as they've gotten started in this campaign. Otherwise, Justin, Johnny Nelson is another recent incoming for the Galaxy. He did find greener pastures in LA. I mean, literally, probably not as green, but nicer weather pastures in Los Angeles. And I think he's, competing, if not providing immediate depth for their starting left back.
Yeah, absolutely. It's good to see. I already saw Johnny, and I still follow him on Instagram personally and with the ball watching account, and seeing he got to meet Djokovic recently. Like completely different lifestyle out there than what
Oh
it
yeah.
is in St. Louis. So I'm glad to see he's also getting some playing time. They did have a couple guys outgoing or leave. Tyler Boyd led the team last season with in goals with 7 and had 4 assists. He was second in total minutes for the Galaxy last year behind Push. Chicharito, big name, everybody knows him from Mexico, and the kind of the I would say the interesting matches that the U.S. has had and kind of how he played in that. Kind of a shell of himself, honestly, after his injury. He had 1 goal and 1 assist in 9 games played last year. And then Douglas Costa, he also left. He led the team with 10 assists and then additionally had 3 goals and only 13 full 90s played throughout the year. So he was just an assist machine.
If I'm not mistaken, I believe Chicharito is back at his hometown team in Guadalajara.
Yeah,
And isn't that where Cade Cowell is as well? Very interesting, at least. But I think he's with one of the fellow Americans.
nice.
But yeah, sayonara to Chicharito and Douglas Costa. I don't think they'll miss them much with these new incoming signings they've made. Obviously, last year was abysmal for the Galaxy compared to their expectations. They went 8-14-12 win-loss draw, only gathered 36 points. So it was pretty rough for them. Home record, they had 6 wins. Away, they had 2. So this team did a lot of drawing, obviously 2 of them against us. Negative 16 goal differential looking at 23, and they conceded the most goals in the MLS all of last season with 67, and that was the most by 8. It wasn't really even close at all. So rough 2023, but 24 is looking up for them. Their opening game, I'm sure a lot of you all watched it. Justin, I at least tuned in for a bit of it, was against Miami and Messi and co, and they drew them, which was, I think, a good optimistic start to the season.
Yeah, absolutely. I was definitely watching that game, and then they went to San Jose, had a 3-1 dub, and then we mentioned this, I think, on the recap of our last game, kind of giving a quick preview into this preview that they just drew at Nashville. They went down 2-0 and then came back and scored 2 goals to tie it, and ended up getting a point in Nashville too, which is not an easy place to play.
So who's really the people to look out for on this team? I think it's changed drastically since last time we talked about them, but the one consistent is Ricky Pooch. That dude is a baller. You love him or you hate him. I feel like he's got that kind of vibe about him. I'm sure if you're a Galaxy fan, you love this guy. He's still only 24. He's a Spanish international, very small dude, but he is silky on the ball. He's played some of his youth years in Barcelona from 2018 to 2020 for the senior team. This isn't just like B team Barcelona stuff. And last year he had 7 goals, 8 assists, and 30 games played, 28 of them being starts. He's a huge critical cog in their system. 2024 so far, he's already got 2 goals on 13 shots, landing 9 of those on target. He's a big impact player. Last year, just looking at some of his big stats, he was number 1 in passes into the final third, number 7 in shots, and number 1 in progressive passes. So you talk about a guy that sees that final ball and that can get it there from a technical perspective. He is everything wrapped into one. He is everything that makes this team tick.
Yeah, I would say he is the kind of the, I mean, he plays in the middle, but then also they just build everything around this guy. They're not scoring many goals without going through him. And you can see that from the 7 goals and 8 assists. But I think if you kind of like hockey assists, he probably had like 20 plus assists last year with the amount of goals they scored. So the other one that we already mentioned a little bit, Joseph Pamstill, 26-year-old from Ghana, 5'7", 145 pounds. He is their young defensive player, designated player. They signed in February. He had 61 goals and 35 assists during his stint in Europe, which was technically in 3 different countries, Belgium, Hungary, and Turkey. In 2022, 2023, he was with Genk, as you mentioned, had 18 goals and 14 assists. This guy's a workhorse up top. He also has 15 appearances for the Ghana national team. This year for LA Galaxy, he has 1 goal with a 0.9 XG, with 4 shots on target and 3 starts so far.
Yeah, off to a flying start. And then finally, their striker, who I wanted to make note of here, is a 24-year-old Bosnian by the name of Dejan Joveljic. They actually had him last year. We played against him last year. I remember seeing him at City Park. Obviously, didn't have the same stat line, but last year he had 6 goals, 4 assists, which is decent. Not probably if you're number 9 if you're in the LA Galaxy, but so far this year, in just 3 games played, 3 goals, 1 assist. So he is showing good faith already. He's created 1.5 XG already by himself this season, which is number 13 in the MLS. And he was a top 10 XG per 90 guy. Even last year with the team that they had around him, I think he's going to have a fantastic year. Look at some of the depth around these guys, though. They have Diego Fagundes, who used to be a straight up baller. He's still got a lot of good time left in him. He's an MLS kind of journeyman. I think a lot of people probably know him from his time, I believe, when he was balling out in Austin. But he left Austin. He also played for the Rebs for quite a while. So he's got a lot of MLS good experience, a very creative type player, good, I'd say complement to the rest of the folks we mentioned. They have a new left back that not new, but a young, really promising left back in Julian Aud, who's a 20-year-old Argentinian in his second year there. So that's who John Nelson's competing with. And then a legend of the game, if you watch Premier League at all, Maya Yoshida, the Japanese center back, he's 35 years old, still kicking, has 126 cap for his national team in Japan. And they're one of the more exciting ones right now. And he anchors that back line. The back line is something to look at, though, because all these signings, Justin, basically, besides the left back I talked about, are in the forward line. They have an aging, I'd say decently vulnerable, but experienced back line.
Which, I mean, that is expected when we said that they gave up 67 goals last year. So it's like their front office was like, shit, we can't stop a single thing. So we're going to go out and we're going to sign these guys to just score 80 goals and net down to 67. So we'll see if it works out, but I do think it'll be a high scoring game. We'll talk about that with the bets. But so we talked through the players, we talked through how they played. Who is their coach and why? Like, what is the style that they're going through? Greg Vanney, fourth season with LA Galaxy. He was at Toronto FC before that from 2014, 2020. He mainly likes to play a 4-3-3 or a 4-2-3-1, so very similar to us. I would say in general, this has a lot to do with Push. They're very high in the possession category as well, which is something that I feel like when we do these previews, we have a lot of those. And it's like we got to try to go impress them, which is our style, which I have not seen a lot in this year, Jake, at least.
No, actually, no. I mean, this is definitely the most, I think if you look at like the grid of possession and speed and sequence, this is the team that's the furthest on the right in terms of possession numbers, and we are the furthest on the opposite side, or one of the furthest. I think Red Bull might be just further than us, but we play such similar styles. So yes, very, very contradictory styles in terms of how we play. They brought in those big signings, those splash signings up top in the attacking department. I think they're going to look at that forward line, including Pooch, to really just deliver some top-notch wing play, creativity, find those chances, be super aggressive. And I will say, though, also, I think in that style, I've read a little bit about their rest defense and just, transition defense and how they play. And I think given some of those limitations I mentioned on their center backs and their defensive line in general, that's an area of exploitation, I think, for us, and something that I think we'll be looking to take advantage of as we get into this match, because attacking wise, they're looking pretty solid. But let's get to trends and storylines, Justin. Just a quick caveat here too. Also, you're going to hear some things 2024, some things 2023. I want to eventually make this pivot to where we're just doing 2024, especially for a team like the Galaxy, where like it's night and day. It's Jekyll and Hyde. But we have such a limited sample size still in terms of like home and away form or points per match. So there'll be a little bit of both, and we'll try to call that out.
Yeah, I mean, right now there's only 3 regular season games, right? So I would say we'd want to get at least 5 under our belt before we really start just progressing directly into 2024. But look, at all that being said, looking at the general trends and storylines, their last 5 home games: draw, win, draw, loss, with a 1.41 points per match at home, with a goal differential of +2. So obviously they play way better at home than what they do away. Some of their strengths just in general, we talk about counters, long shots, creating scoring chances, coming back from down, obviously, is what they showed in that Nashville game as well, and finishing. When you spend that much money, you're expected to score goals. Their offense specifically for 2024, their XG of 1.58 per 90 is number 3 in the MLS, and they're averaging 2 goals for in the game right now, which is number 5 in the MLS. So that money is being well spent as of right now.
Yeah, and again, that is a 2024 stat, limited sample size, but that's where they are right now in the pack. And there are some pretty high-powered offenses out there. So I think that's impressive. Their goals last year, when did they tend to come in terms of the game time? They were, I'd say, more of a second-half team. They had the bulk of their goals, almost a fourth of them, come in the 61st to 75th minute, and then about a quarter, or just about 20% and 20% in the 31st to 45th, so end of the first half, and the 76th to 90th, so end of the second half. So again, I will go back on it, probably say, a good over 50% coming in the second half. And they're a shot-heavy team, and they're very effective on them. When I say that, they were number 3 even last year in shots on target, and they had the 4th most free kick shots. So a very direct team. They're not going to mess around. Pooch is I'd say a Leuven equivalent on set pieces. He has that ball in his locker. He can put it wherever he wants it to go. And they're also able to hit you on the open play as well. I looked last year at their open play XG, so take set pieces out of it. They were number 4. So they're able to kind of knock it around and just carve you out and displace you, get you out of position and into passing lanes to where they can look to send in through balls or long balls and really exploit the defenses they play against by just kind of nudging and poking and prodding their way through your defense.
Yeah, that shows they're number 1 in passes as well. 55.2% possessions, number 3 in the MLS, 3rd in progressive carries, number 2 in progressive passes as well. So like you said, it's not one of those teams that's looking to like only hit you on a counter or kind of a style that we have. They're looking to slowly progress and build up the field, swinging it back and forth and getting those passes in. Looking into their defense, which you already mentioned, is somewhat old as well. 2024, their XGA of 1.34 per 90 is pretty average for the MLS. And their 1.33 goals against per game is 10th worst. And so, I mean, it looks like that trend is still kind of hitting on everything that we talked about for last year. It is applying already early in this season that they're looking to score goals, but they're also getting scored on a decent amount.
Yeah, and I will say their expected goals against in open play, so teams that kind of play not similar to them, but just not set pieces when you take those out of it, that was the worst in MLS last year. So when you're open play, there are no fouls being called or corner kicks or free kicks, whatever have you, teams can carve them open as well. I'd say a lot of that probably, like I said, probably happens in the defensive transitions or when they're kind of resting on defense as they possess the ball and there's a quick turnover and the other team shoots the other direction. When they concede goals, they concede about a fourth of them, at least last year, at the very end of the first half, so the 31st to 45 minutes, and then 21% in the middle of the second half, from the 61st to 75th. They conceded the 4th most shots on target against. So again, they're going to leak through. This isn't their strong suit. They're going to have their goalie be challenged in this game, and we'll talk about the goalkeeping here right in a second. But they also conceded, Justin, here's a little nice piece for you all, the number 2 most set piece shots allowed last year. So teams are going very direct at them from free kicks, from corner kicks, from any set plays. I think we will do the exact same if we're looking to be successful.
Well, that makes sense because their post-shot XG minus goals against is a minus 7.3. I know that's a mouthful, but it's basically saying that their goalkeeping is terrible. When we have Berkey, what's Berkey? It's like a positive what? Like
yeah. In that same stat line, I forget the exact metric from last year, but I think he was either 1 or 2. And again, the post shot XG minus goals against just kind of shows the amount of goals that person is effectively prevented. That's just an easy way to think about it. I wouldn't say that's the exact translation, but that's how you can kind of conceptualize it. So they made some changes in that department. They had, I'm trying to think, I think it was Jonathan Bond last year, and they released him. And they went and got LAFC's John McCarthy, who I also wouldn't say is the most proficient goalkeeper either. So again, I think that's a weak suit for them. But let's look at some of the keys to this game, Justin, as we get into how City can go ahead and play Galaxy and hopefully get some points here on the road as we did last weekend. I think for the Galaxy and for us, we need to be, obviously you always want to start the game strong. I keep writing that, and I'm like, it just kind of gets repetitive. I think in this game specifically, looking at their proficiency in the second half, you've got to finish strong against this team. You've got to play that full 90. You've got to be competitive for the entire match. And I say that because they won last year 41% of their second halves at home. And I think they only lost under 20% of them. So the second half is a strong suit for them. And I think for us, we've got to maintain the away form. We got to continue to claw, fight, tooth and nail any sort of points you can get on the road. They were only the 24th best team at home last year. And I know they have new faces, and that should probably tick up a little bit, but I don't think it just totally flips overnight either. So we've got to take advantage of that. We were the number 8 away team last year. They were number 24 at home. Is there a way we can try to use that? This is our second season. We're ignorant to all the history that LA Galaxy bring, all these big names. We're going to play our own style and try to take a point.
Yeah, I will say, Jake, so you have on this one, and I completely agree. It's get stuck in. It's going to be a long, grueling game because we're not going to have the ball a lot. And I will say, once we do get stuck in, this is a perfect game to get it out and move it quickly to go on the counterattack. All of this is coming to say that I think this could be a great game for someone like AZ or Celio or Sam. Is once we get that ball and we have them turn it over, we need to immediately go at them. And I think that's going to be important in this game, but then also not be careless with it, because if we give it up, it's going to take a decent amount of time to get it back, just with how LA plays. So I would say play our game, press and then counter them as quickly as we can, but get the ball from out under your feet, because right when they lose it, they're going to look to collapse as well. So we need to get it out and try to get it to the wingers and move on from there. And then I will also say, hey, let's set piece goal. That's going to be one of my goals here, Jake, is let's get a set piece goal with these guys. You were talking about goalkeeping, and obviously the goalkeeping is not that great. They do have a lot of chances that they give up during these set pieces. Let's get some free kicks. Let's get some corners. Let's get some balls in, get some headers on it, and hit some direct shots as well.
I like that. I like that. My last thing I'll say is the defense. We gave some kudos to the defense on the last recap following the Austin draw. This is going to be the biggest test we've faced on this back line so far this season. You know, obviously it's still very young, but I'm looking at our schedule. I see DC United next, Real Salt Lake, Dallas, Austin, Sporting, Houston. I still think the Galaxy are by far and away the best attacking team so far out of those. So this is a huge test. You've got to have head on a swivel, defending your space, communicating so much. I mean, over communicate. I want to hear yelling and screaming out there in a good way, you know, directionally, of course. And you got to have that from your leaders like Tim Parker, like your Roman Berkeys, like your Nilssons. These guys have got to be constantly turned on. If you switch off for a moment, these guys have the pace, the quality, the finishing to make you pay for it. And we cannot afford to make mistakes. So I think this is a huge game defensively for us. Because Justin, last thing I wanted to say, and we talked about how great their attack was. This is like an anaconda or a boa constrictor of a team. They are going to slowly just strangle you and just suck the life out of you as they just knock the ball around. You're not going to get a sniff of it. You talked about it. I mean, we'll get in passing lanes. We'll play our style and we'll get some takeaways for sure. But there's going to be stretches of this game where it's like, will we ever touch the ball again? You got to be patient. You got to believe in the system. This might be ugly, but we can still get something out of this.
That's the one thing I would say that we need to make sure that when we press, we all have to go together. Like you said, otherwise we're going to be running in circles. I mean, I think about whenever I get annoyed in a soccer game, I just try to go get the ball. And then if I'm not coordinating with my team, I'm literally just chasing the ball. And that's not something that we need to do. So if we get frustrated by not having the ball, if one person goes, everybody has to go together and try to do that constriction on them when they have the ball and really try to close down quickly.
My goal for the game is I don't want Ricky Pooch to have a goal contribution. No goals, no assists. I want him to be nullified either by committee or by someone man marking him a lot closer like Durkin, even Leuven playing more defensively, or even Indy, or just having Parker and Nilsson just wear him down physically over the course of the game. You've got to limit that guy, I think, because if you can take him not out of the game, but minimize his impact, I think that gives us the best chance to have some sort of result here. So that's my goal for the game. No goals, no assists for Ricky Pooch.
I'm going to go with that we need to score a set piece goal. I know I already mentioned that, but I'm going to stick with that on this. I would say either corner kick, free kick. That's one that I do think that we need. We've had, and we already had like the Tim Parker header on the corner, and we've had some good chances, but let's put one away against this team, because this is one of their weakest parts of their game is defending set pieces. So let's go at it.
All right. Who's doing it for us, Justin? Let's get into the Hoffman brothers starting 11. Woo! This one's going to be spicy. No, I mean, probably not, actually. I made a couple changes to my thoughts here, Justin. But again, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But I'm going to go ahead and fix a couple of things. I did not love what I saw last game from our front line, specifically being AZ and Adeniran. So for me, they are coming out, and I am going to switch things up. So I'm going to keep the same back line: Marcanic, Nilsson, Parker, Totland, and obviously Berkey. And that I'm going to keep Durkin and Leuven kind of in a little more double pivot. I could see Leuven staying a little more deep this game just because of what the whole game's going to play out like. And I think he has the capability of doing that and just picking his moments to venture forward. But here's my three underneath Klaus. Obviously, I told you I'm taking Adeniran out. I'm putting Klaus into this game. I'm going to go Celio. Obviously, he has earned that position that is rightfully his on the left wing. I'm going to put Ostrak in the middle instead of AZ in this game. And I'm going to have Indy stay out right. And I think Ostrak and Indy can kind of rotate depending on what's working for us at the time, because they're both capable of playing, a little more wide and also a little more centrally. So that's what actually I'm going to go with. I don't want to see AZ start this game. I think he needs a little bit of a break and maybe a little bit of a reset. And you got to play some other players that I'm not saying Ostrak has necessarily earned it, but I also don't know what our alternatives are, honestly.
Yeah, I would say I'm going to go with the same back four: Marcanic, Nilsson, Parker, Totland, and then obviously Durkin and Lubin in front of them. I'm going Celio on the left, obviously, because I love Celio, and I think he's playing an incredible time, or incredible right now. And also, this is a game like we already talked about for him to step up and take this ball away from them and then counter. And I think he fits that mold perfectly. I'm going to put Indy back on the right as well, so we can cut back him his left. I'm keeping AZ in, Jake, solely because of what we just talked about with this being a team that when we can counter and we just turn and go with them, I think he's got the most shiftiness to take that ball and move with it. But I am going to go with Klaus up top just because I do think Adeniran didn't really show his true colors last game. Yes, this is a type of game where we'd like to see Adeniran getting behind and go after some of this older back line. But I think he can do that coming off the bench if you want to sub him in like the 70th and get some legs going there. So I'm going with Klaus up top though as well.
I like the idea of like having a plan in this game of course, I like the idea of having a plan in this game, but a plan for them too, specifically Klaus and Adeniran. I think you give Klaus a full hour. Go out there, find your foot, make an impact, make a difference in this game. If you can't, we're giving Sam a full half hour to run down Yoshida's throat and see how he likes that. And my only thing, and I said no alternatives. I think that's kind of harsh in this team. If I had my pick and everyone was healthy, I would actually put Alm on the right and I would move Indy centrally and then Ostrak would drop out. That'd be my ideal way to start this game, but we're not there yet with Alm. He's only played a couple minutes so far in this last game, which is a miracle in of itself to have him back. So I just think that's where we're at, but I think I'm glad we both agree that Klaus is probably better suited for this game.
No, absolutely. And before we get into predictions, Jake, I was just looking because it's in LA. It's gonna be a late one. It's gonna be 9:30 p.m. I'm for sure going to be already eating dinner at the pitch, then drinking frozen Irish coffees to keep me awake until that 9:30 kickoff. I'm watching the game at the pitch. If you guys don't have plans and you haven't been to the pitch, or if you have and you love it, get there and see us there on Saturday. Or at least me and Jake might be watching Will. I'll be at the pitch, so come out and show out for City.
100%. And we haven't even mentioned one of our favorite sponsors here in Soul Juice. Just went out for a walk. It's getting a little hot out there. I had a little bit of sweat coming down, so I grabbed me myself a Soul Juice. Luis Justin, he sent me a picture, so I'm going to send it to you. But the Schnucks in Town and Country literally has like a whole row in there. By the way, if you haven't been to the grocery store to get Soul Juice, it's kind of in like the produce area with a lot of those healthier or juice-based drinks. There's literally a full rack or row dedicated to Soul Juice. So the Schnucks in Town and Country, those people are drinking their Soul Juice. So I love what they're doing. So shout out to Soul Juice there.
Yeah, as they should. And if you can't make it to the store, if you can't make the Deerberg, Schnucks, Sam's, Costco, wherever you get your groceries, Straub's even, you can go online at souljuice.com and use code BALLWATCHING for 20% off.
You always have that. And you always have our predictions and hammers for the day. So I hate it, Justin. I hate it, but I'm trying to be honest in these predictions. And I think we might lose this game. So my prediction is 2-1. And I don't think it's going to be an easy, win for them. That 2-1 will be comfortable. I think we'll make it very difficult for them. But this is a good freaking team. And the Galaxy, I do expect, obviously having a great start, to be oodles and oodles better compared to last year and probably contend, pretty deep into the MLS Cup playoffs if things go well for them. So I'm predicting a close game here, but I do think we might come out in the bottom here in a 2-1 loss.
I am going with a 2-2 draw. I think this game is going to be pretty similar to the Austin game in the sense of scoring. I don't think we're going to be as dominant in a game like this, but I think we're going to go down, tie it up, go down, tie it up, and show a little resiliency here. And we're going to kind of give them a taste of their own medicine on comebacks. But unfortunately, I don't think we're keeping these guys out of the net. That's why getting into the betting lines, the over-under, it's at 3.5 at plus 130. I think the 2.5 is like minus 190. So a lot of juice there. Obviously, Vegas thinks there's going to be goals in this game, and so do we with our predictions. But City money line plus 285, LA Galaxy to win minus 130, or the draw plus 285 as well. So obviously we are heavy underdogs on this, which is to be expected on some of these road games. And we already talked about the under 3.5 is minus 170. My bet for this game, Jake, is a flat over 3 goals. That's minus 130. So it would be a push if we lose the game 2-1, like your prediction. I mean, you would get your money back on a push. So I think there's going to be 4, maybe 5 goals in this game. So I'm thinking I'm going to hit my bet, but I'm going to take it a little bit safer instead of doing 3.5 or eating the juice at 2.5. I'm going to go flat 3 and see if I can get a push out of it or a dub.
I like that bet. I like the goals bet because that's a way that I can not bet against my team, which I will never do. You can hold me to my word there. So the 2 bets that I was interested in here is, yes, I bet a loss, but I think anytime you can get double chance at basically even money, which is what we are right now at minus 105, I'm tempted to at least sprinkle a little bit on there and have a little bit riding on the team to get a result. So a tie or a win would put me in the green there. That's at -105 for double chance. I think my most likely higher unit bet is going to be both teams to score. I do think we get on the board. I do think they get on the board in this game, and over 2.5. And that last time I looked was about -135. So there's a little bit extra juice you got to put in that to get some value out of it. But I do think this is highly likely, and that's the reason why you see that goal tally at the 3.5 line.
I like that bet a lot because that way, like you said, we're both rooting for goals, which is what you're rooting for in any. Look, no one bet the under in any game. It's just not fun. In soccer, basketball, hockey, baseball, I don't care. You want to see runs, goals, baskets. So bet the over. Go with the over 3 at -130, or Jake's both teams to score and the over 2.5 at -135.
Yeah, and this game's gonna end 0-0 because of everything we just said.
Oh my god!
Hopefully not.
In the game's gonna end 0-0 at 11 p.m. I will be very upset if it's staying up that late and then also not even seeing a goal.
Brutal. Well, that's it for you all. That's the preview that we have for today. Thank you all for tuning in. If you're liking the show, make sure to throw us a rating and review on Apple, Spotify, whatever have you on the podcast platforms. On YouTube, leave us a comment. Give us a question for the next episode we do, or for a segment, or any feedback you have. Make sure you throw us a subscribe there as well, so we know that you are tuned in and listening. But thank you all again for listening to the show here. We'll see you all on Sunday again for a recap of this match, which is happening late at night on Saturday at 9:30. You can find it obviously on Apple TV, and we'll talk to you on Sunday. Hopefully feeling pretty good. I don't know. We'll see. But hopefully you all know more about the matchup following this preview. And everyone have a great rest of your week and weekend. Enjoy this weather, St. Louis. All for City.